This is Southern Cross News with Joe Palmer.
Good evening everyone and welcome to Southern Cross News. 2 days after the Premier's frank admission our health system isn't up to scratch, another hospital escalation has been declared. A line of rammed ambulances sat outside the Royal Hobart Hospital today, with capacity inside stretched. Aggravating the problems, private hospitals are diverting ambulances away because of staffing issues. Michael Breen has this report.
Pressures on the health system have ramped up, forcing the Royal Hobart Hospital to declare the highest level of its patient flow plan. A level 4 escalation has been declared, with the emergency department facing an increase in demand. At least 10 ambulances were ramped this afternoon, waiting to admit their patients. The health union says the pressure on these paramedics isn't sustainable.
An ambulance ramp at a hospital is not the place for an ambulance. For every ambulance you see here today, sitting waiting to offload their patient is an ambulance that's not in their local community waiting to respond to emergencies.
Southern Cross News understands at least 3 elective surgeries were cancelled yesterday and another 3 today as hospital staff try and clear the backlog. This afternoon, 31 people were stuck in emergency waiting for a bed in a ward to become available. Hospital authorities say the escalation protocols are a normal way to manage periods of high demand. Making these problems worse, the Hobart Private Hospital and Calvary Lenna Valley have declared a bypass. Management of both hospitals say school holidays and illnesses have caused staffing problems, so ambulance patients aren't being accepted. On Sunday, the Premier admitted our health system isn't good enough, but his government will respond to increasing demand where it can.
The government on the weekend conceded that we've had a massive spike in demand. The old busy is the new normal, and we're getting spikes in demand like those that we've had yesterday and today.
In a statement, the Health Minister says a support package is relieving immediate pressure on the Hobart and Launceston emergency departments. In the long term, he says new buildings will deliver more beds, staff and services, but quite clearly the pressure remains until that's delivered.
Tasmanians are leading the country when it comes to taking prescription drugs and amphetamines. The troubling findings have emerged from wastewater testing carried out by the Australian Criminal Intelligence Commission.
In April this year, wastewater samples were collected and tested from across the country, and the results for Tasmania are far from good. Compared to last year, MDA consumption has jumped in the state's cities. Use of oxycodone and fentanyl, often labelled hillbilly heroin, also leapt, giving Tasmania the unwanted spot of leading the nation on prescription drugs.
When we think of the drug problem, it's not the drugs that people often think about. It's the prescription drugs, it's alcohol, and it's people that are using them all at once. And that's where problems can actually start.
It raises the familiar problem, finding the resources in Tasmania's struggling health system to help those suffering addiction.
The very first problem is having enough treatment places for the people that actually need treatment. So we need to see drug use as a health issue.
We know that there are many people who are currently in prison who shouldn't be there and wouldn't be there if the residential beds were available to them in the community.
Alcohol still accounts for half substance abuse cases for rehab services at Launceston City Mission.
But increasingly it's been methamphetamine, and so that's up at number 2 now.
The report also estimates 92 kilograms of methamphetamine is consumed in Tasmania each year. Tasmania Police received the report last week and are considering the findings. In a statement, it added the result could be used for a better strategic response from law enforcement and health services. Sean McComish, Southern Cross News.
Hydro Tasmania's dispute with Basslink has escalated. Basslink says it's seeking funds withheld by Hydro over the 2015 outage of Tasmania's electricity connection with the mainland. So far, the parties haven't been able to reach an agreement under a dispute resolution process, with the matter now going to arbitration.
They couldn't resolve that matter, and so the matter goes to arbitration, and it's a very serious matter. And obviously a fair and reasonable outcome is then expected.
Hydro Tasmania says it's managing the dispute in the best interests of Tasmania. Tasmanians looking to upskill can benefit from a new round of funding. The government says up to 950 training places will be supported by a $1.6 million funding injection. Subsidised training including construction, project management, plumbing and mechanics.
There's a boom in the building construction sector, in the south, north, northeast and across the state, and we've got to provide for the future.
We're seeing a little bit of a gap of about 300 to 500 apprentices, so the Minister's announcement today well and truly covers the short gap.
The Housing Industry Association says finishing trades like plastering, painting and tiling are in hot demand. Tasmania's reputation as a foodie's paradise continues to climb, with 7 of our restaurants recognised on the national stage in the Good Food Guide. Among them, Mona's The Sauce and Launceston's Stillwater, now sitting up there with Australia's best.
Terry Clark putting the final touches on a dish that's fit for a king. He's the head chef here at Mona's The Sauce, which has just been awarded a hat in the Good Food Guide. Terry now celebrating one of his greatest personal achievements.
It's quite a high level of candidates that were included in the list, and then to be a part of that is it's an honour. So I'm very, very happy.
The restaurant going from strength to strength, with this award cementing its reputation on the national stage.
There's a lot of work to get to this point, so we're all very excited and very proud of them.
More than 500 restaurants went under review for last night's awards held in Melbourne, with 264 of them receiving the highly acclaimed hat status. Locally, Dyer Maker, Fico, Templo and Stillwater all recognised for their excellence and awarded one hat.
To be awarded a hat alongside some of our most favourite and well-respected dining venues in the country, it's a huge achievement and it's really humbling.
Stillwater, based in Launceston, says the state's tourism boom is increasing their popularity.
There's definitely more people that are coming from interstate and overseas to come to Tassie and to come to dine with us, so it's really great.
The Agrarian Kitchen Eatery and Franklin were both awarded 2 hats, leaving a very sweet taste in the mouth of those working in Tasmania's booming foodie industry.
Makes it all worthwhile at the end of the day. Yeah.
Louise Hedger, Southern Cross News.
5,000 varieties of roses are close to blooming, with Longford's brightest day of the year fast approaching. Organisers today took advantage of the spring sunshine to launch next month's Festival of Roses.
Oh, it's just a nice casual day with great atmosphere around the Woomers property. There's 80 odd stalls, a lot of those will sell wine and foods, etc. So it's a cruisy type day where they can just come out, enjoy the atmosphere, sit back and have a wine and something to eat as well.
Last year, more than 7,000 people packed the historic estate for the day. The festival will be held on November 18. A Tasmanian pilot is about to take off on a record-breaking flight with a potentially life-saving message on board. The teenager will travel to the furthest corners of the country to talk about suicide prevention after 2 of his friends nearly took their own lives.
This will be Bob Bramley's view when he begins a mission with a motive. Not only will the 16-year-old aim to become the youngest pilot to circumnavigate Australia solo, he'll also be touching down in local communities, spreading a message about suicide prevention after he came close to losing his mates last year.
The 2 people that I almost lost to suicide are very, very close to me now. And without them, I wouldn't be the person that I am today.
He will travel 13,000 kilometres and visit 30 communities for a campaign he's calling Surviving Turbulence.
It's such a big issue that's not often looked at.
Bob has helped raise the $25,000 needed for the flight by selling vegetables from the family farm.
A month or 2 ago when he first spoke to me about it, I thought it was a great idea, but knew there'd be a lot of planning, a lot of work, but he's so enthusiastic about it.
This cockpit will be Bob's home for 17 days when he embarks on the journey starting January 7.
And his mum couldn't be prouder.
If he can save one life, if he can make a difference to one kid who doesn't take their life, then it'll have all been worth it.
Any extra money Bob raises along the way will be donated to mental health organisation Beyond Blue. Tom Johnson, Southern Cross News.
The state government has poured cold water on suggestions from former AFL Tasmania CEO Scott Wade that the only way for Tasmania to get its own AFL team is to cut ties with the Hawthorn and North Melbourne football clubs.
We have in place appropriate arrangements with Hawthorn and North Melbourne. Tasmanians appreciate that. They are legal agreements in place. We have no intention of ripping up those agreements.
The $7 million sponsorship deal, which sees the two clubs play 7 games in Tasmania throughout the AFL season, runs out in 2021, with the state government yet to confirm if it will extend them beyond that. First-hand experiences of bullying have been collected for a new podcast launched today. The project, by the Council's Youth Advisory Group, highlights the harm and how to deal with bullies.
The podcast has a range of episodes that are different students throughout Launceston who are sharing their stories and experiences of bullying.
The podcast has been released as part of Mental Health Week and is available at listening stations at the Albert Hall and online. With 1 in 10 Tasmanians living with dyslexia, a month-long campaign is hoping to raise awareness of its prevalence. Dozens of people today turning out in a show of support to help everyone reach their full potential.
At a young age, Edward Jones was diagnosed with dyslexia.
Mostly struggle in math with times tables. That's what I struggled a lot with.
After struggling to find support or information, Edward's mum Amelia started Square Pegs.
Helps provide parents with the confidence that they can understand what their child's going through and how to get the most effective help.
Now he's learning well thanks to different education strategies.
Just means our brain works different.
Today making paper planes alongside dozens of others as part of Richard Branson's national awareness raising initiative, Get On Board.
Have a bit of fun, a sort of STEM-based exercise in terms of measuring and flying their planes, and just to get kids together.
It's more common than you may think, affecting 1 in 10 Tasmanians and 80% of those living with a learning difficulty.
Sort of big picture thinking, creativity, emotional intelligence, and there's plenty of examples of highly successful, famous people with dyslexia.
While it can be challenging for those who are dyslexic, they're often strong in other ways.
If we can identify these kids early and help them reach their potential so they don't disengage from school, keep them in school and let them fly.
Louise Hedger, Southern Cross News.
Now let's take a look at the day's business and finance news with thanks to Tasplan, your local super fund. It was another bad day for the Australian share market as healthcare and other international stocks kept the market down. The ASX 200 index has dropped by 59.2 points. A short time ago, the Australian dollar was trading at 71 US cents and 61.61 euro cents.
After a slender few years in the format, the Tasmanian Tigers are preparing to compete for their first one-day cup title in 8 years. But to do so, they'll have to topple a Victorian side jam-packed with talent. The Tigers skipper has been through it all with the side.
We've been at the wrong end of the one-day table for a couple of years, so nice to be back playing in these big games.
And while Bailey can take some credit, having belted 70 not out in today's 6-wicket win over Queensland, he says the side's depth is the strongest it's been in years. 2 tournament centuries from Ben McDermott could see him in line for national selection down the track, while the Tigers' attack has shared the load of wickets, tearing through some big-name orders en route to tomorrow's final.
I certainly don't think we've had to rely on any one player with bat or ball, which has been something that's really pleasing.
But Bailey also knows his side will need something special against the Bushrangers, with Marcus Harris, Peter Hanscom and Glenn Maxwell always dangerous with the bat, while Andrew Feckerty, Nick Maddinson and Fawad Ahmed will be out to make an early impact with the ball.
It's strong, international players, a lot of experience, pretty well covered in terms of power hitters, 100 scorers and spin bowling quick, so they're very well-rounded side.
The match begins in Melbourne at 10:30 tomorrow morning. Meantime, Hobart's Elwick Racecourse will play host to Tasmania's first ever mobile start trotting race on Friday night as the industry looks to build the format's profile in the state.
You get involved, another string to their bow, a bit international coverage. That's where most international countries don't take pacing, they're into trotting. So hopefully we build it up.
Tas Racing are committed for funding and running our trotting races for 12 months. Started in July and so far it's been really well received locally and nationally.
States Pacing Club is hoping for a strong showing of support at the meet, with plans to run them more regularly into the future.
Good evening. Devonport with 21, the state's warmest today. Hobart recorded 14, Launceston and Burnie 19 degrees. Showers did make their way across the state, with Tea Tree Point recording 16 millimetres, Ouse, Low Head and Smithton 17 degrees, Flinders Island 16, King Island and Friendly Beaches 15, Strawn a cool day 13, the top, Grove just 12 and Lyawini a high of 11. Low-level cloud swept in over the state behind the cold front, which did push the middle-level cloud off the northeast of Tasmania. Now, as well as that front over our region, we had a complex area of cloud over Victoria and New South Wales. Low-level cloud moved over the Bight, a bit more too over the interior, but the far north remained clear. Tomorrow, the high sits south of the Bight with a ridge over Tasmania. A trough attached low cells runs right around the west, far north and east of the nation. The wind south-southeasterly at 20 to 30 knots. They'll ease over the west and north during the morning, swells at 3 metres in western and southern waters. A strong wind warning is current for waters between Sandy Cape and Tasman Island. A cool day tomorrow again. Hobart partly cloudy, 7 overnight, 14 the top, 14 also for Geeveston, bit of cloud for Bothwell but fine, and 13. Launceston fine and partly cloudy, 16 the high, 15 for Devonport and Cressy with sunny breaks. For Burnie tomorrow, fine, sunny, 14 the top after a cool night, 16 the high for Strawn, Curry partly cloudy and 14 degrees. And for St Helens, early showers clearing, 13 the top, 12 for Swansea, Orford, 14 degrees. UV at 5 for all of us tomorrow, which is moderate. On Thursday, fine all over after widespread morning frost, a perfect day for the show in Launceston. Fine on Friday, apart from the chance of a light shower over the east. And on Saturday, fine and mostly sunny, the possibility once again of a shower over the east. A morning storm in Perth tomorrow. Mostly sunny weather for Adelaide and Melbourne, showers forecast for Canberra and Sydney, a gusty storm and 31 for Brisbane and 30 degrees plus further north. A little bit cloudy at the moment, 9 degrees in Hobart, 11 right now in Launceston, Devonport 15 degrees. And Joe, cool day tomorrow, but don't be surprised if this time next week temperatures will be in the high 20s. Strawn 28 degrees, Hobart 26. It's going to be beautiful this time next week.
I will hold on to that. Thank you very much for that, Murph. That's all from the team for now. Thanks for your company. Have a lovely evening. See you a little later. Bye-bye.